Your true nature is endless. It has no beginning. It has no end. You're pure consciousness. You are existing now on multiple planes of existence, having multiple experiences now. You have had existed on many planes in many dimensions. You've had many lifetimes that have led you to this point. Think about it. Many of you that are listening to this conversation, this interaction, 5, 10 years ago, you weren't open to this type of interaction.
With me today is Benny Ferguson Jr. Thanks for coming on the show, Benny.
Yeah, Ron, it's awesome to be here. We're excited.
Yeah, me too. We were just saying off the air that's really my first introduction to, I guess, anything really, well, anything esoteric apart from UFOs, because I've been interested in that for a long time. But as far as
Mhm,
channeling goes, especially was the work of Esther Hicks with
mhm,
Abraham. And
mhm.
so I was really excited to get your email to have you on as a guest on the show. So I'm curious about your personal journey with channeling Abraham. So can you share a bit about how this connection first began for you and how it's evolved over time?
Yeah, well, the connection for me, um, I guess I started channeling back in 2012 is when I realized I was channeling. Now, to tell you the truth, looking back, I had already begun channeling. I just didn't know it. And the funny thing is, it was with school when I was in college. Um, when I had a paper to write, and this seems funny and weird at the same time when I tell it, but when I would have a paper to write, I would get do all the research and have the paper, have everything ready, but I could never actually get my mind straight to sit down and write it until the night before. And the night before, it would be 12:30, 1 o'clock. It's due the next day, and the whole paper, 3, 4, 5 page paper would come through. And now looking back, the way it happened, I was being supported then and just didn't realize it. So it was, and then finding out later, this is something that I had done before, in previous lifetimes, and it's something that I said I was going to do this time. And so looking back over my life, starting as a child, I was having what I called nightmares in like early elementary school. But they were trying to contact me and kind of get me moving along this path back then. I just wasn't ready, right? I was in religion and my family, and all my family was in religion. So I had no framework for any of this type of thing until 2006 when I had a spontaneous out of body experience. And so that kind of forced me to start looking outside of religion and outside of all the things that I had grown up around. Um, and when I first started channeling, I wasn't channeling Abraham. Uh, I was listening to a lot of Esther. I had watched The Secret and kind of got intrigued by that. Um, I don't know how many people did this, but all of the people that were in The Secret, I went and found their websites and all that stuff, and I looked for information on what they studied to get to where they were. And so I found all of their book lists and all of these things that they suggested, bought all the books, read all of the stuff that they read on their way. And then, of course, I was listening to the videos and that type thing. And then, for whatever reason, I started channeling with Abraham, and I asked if it was them because it kind of felt similar to how I felt sometimes when I was listening to them on the video. And we've kind of been doing it for a while now. I guess probably 2006 I started. No, not 2006, 2012 I started, and not shortly after it's been me channeling them, but in the initial, it wasn't them, and I know it wasn't them. I could feel different vibrational presences on me, and I could interpret what they were communicating to me. And I recorded them. Sometimes I would speak it, and I started off writing it, typing, trying to make sure I could hold the connection. And then I moved from typing it to trying to speak it because I was seeing other people speaking. So I was trying to speak and make sure I stay out of the way so the connection was clear, and then trying to just went from there. And then when I asked the question, because like I said, this feeling felt similar, and they said it was Abraham Collective and all of this stuff. So I'm asking questions just for me, in the beginning, like, okay, who and what? And so it kind of just progressed from there. And we've kind of just developed, and I've worked to try to get better at allowing them to communicate through me so that we can be the level of support that now I know that I'm inspired to be, which is supporting beings who are human at this moment to be the most powerful versions of themselves and know who they are while they're walking physically and not after they make the transition.
You mentioned the spontaneous OBE that occurred. I'm fascinated by OBEs. Can you tell us a bit more about what happened there?
Yeah, it's well, at the time I was working in financial services. I was fully licensed, insurance, mutual funds, and different things that we were offering. And I've always been a strong learner and all of that stuff. And so I knew everything that I needed to do. I just couldn't get myself to do it. Right. As far as the performance, making the calls, there was extreme fear of rejection there. As far as one of the fears that was in between me and being able to actually perform, make the calls and go on the sales calls while the guy that trained me, he was very successful at the time and he's still doing that business. He's very, very financially successful. Our vice president who has and had multiple offices at that time, I mean, he was doing close to six figures a month. And so I spent a lot of time around these guys, right? I ate with them. We went to conventions and stuff together. So I knew everything they knew about the business. And so but I couldn't get myself to do the activities. I didn't know then it was the fears and all of that stuff that I had in my mind. But so I was driving home one day, about a 30-minute drive from the office back home. And I was just upset with myself, right? I started crying. I'm so upset. Like, what's wrong with me? And I can't do I see these guys doing it, but I can't get myself to do it to the level that I need to even be at the place financially I need to be for myself. And so I think a couple of weeks later, I had and this is 2006. I had another fear-based dream nightmare. Um, and right before I woke up, I told myself that I was tired of being afraid. And when I woke up, I was in an anger rage. And it felt like fire was coming off of me. And I got up and I was standing beside my bed and I was just furious at myself, just tired of being afraid of just life in general, not knowing how to get myself to do some of the things that I've always been inspired to do, be in business and I've been leading since I was a 14-year-old overweight kid. I've been doing things and leading people. And my wife came around the front of the bed. This is like at 1:30 in the morning. She's asking me to calm down. And then it happened. And I was behind my body. My vision was 360 degrees. I could see my body. I could see my wife in front of me asking me to calm down. And it took all I had to keep myself from attacking her because I was so upset. And so what seemed like a long time was probably just, barely a second, maybe two. Then I was back in my body and I turned and I hit the bookshelf that was beside me. And so that's how I know it wasn't a dream, right? So, because the next few days, the next week, my hands were still all bruised up. So that's kind of what got me out of the religion idea and on the path of looking for, okay, what happened to me? I see that there's more now, so I need to figure out what's really going on. And Ron, I tell you, when that happened, I asked one question that has kind of been the overarching umbrella, which I've put everything that I've learned up under. Because there's so many different ways you can go. Like you said, from UFOs and all of the stuff out there that's non-physical things, psychic things that are potentials for us that we can go down, the road paths that we can go down. But I asked one question, I said, okay, since I know now that what I'm seeing and the body and all these things is not the truth, I'm going to find out what's going on and what's true. But what control and power do I have in and over my life? That's the only question I've got because I can't get myself to do what I want to do in my life here. What control and power do I have if none of this stuff is really real, if it's not the truth? And so everything that I've learned, I've put under that one question. And everything that I've learned under that question is what I have for people to support people with. And so that's been my guiding point ever since that happened.
Mm. Yeah, that was there's often a catalyst, isn't there, that causes you to sort of rethink your entire existence.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah, that's what I'm finding. Even with, as I listen to other people's stories and other guests that you've had, it's very similar. Yeah,
mm, mm. So I'm I'm deeply grateful that you're sharing your personal journey with us, Benny. And if it feels aligned for you, I'd like to invite Abraham to join the conversation directly. Would that be okay?
yeah,
And
that's fine.
awesome. And just for people who are watching that maybe not familiar with channels, could you just describe the process and what it's like for you to do the channeling?
What it would it's not it's for me, and I don't know if this is something that they have developed or not. They have developed, but I don't really have to do anything. Right? It's like they're always here, and I mean they're here right now, and they're ready to start talking, and they tell me to stop saying we, right? And that it's just us, but I don't really have to do anything. There's no process or anything. I just kind of get out of the way and then just start communicating what's being communicated to me. And it comes from this direction. I can tell you that. It comes from this direction. That's where I perceive the information coming from. But like I said, I don't really have to do anything, so we can rock and roll.
Amazing. So you're fully conscious of everything that's said, or like
I am, but I
yeah.
I remember bits and pieces because like I said, I try to stay out of the way. If I try to interpret and understand and participate, the connection is not as pure. What's going to happen is when I first start, it may sound a little slow and a little choppy, but as we go on, it'll get cleaner and it'll be like we're talking right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Fascinating. All right. Well, I've got a few questions here.
Okay.
Um,
I'm-
so Abraham's mentioned, I've heard mentioned often that our experiences have got seeds or causes that's rooted in our thoughts and beliefs. So how can we identify and transforming any limiting belief that we might have unconsciously that's creating these undesired outcomes in our lives?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. That's an excellent question, and we are here. Yeah, we're always here. We're we're always kind of behind the scenes trying to push through. Benny does a lot on his own through his experience, and he's had a lot. And you know, believe it or not, in a short amount of time, we've supported a lot of people, and so he has a lot of information. But we're always behind the scenes and excited to come through and participate in conversations like this. Um, Identifying limiting beliefs, identifying those dominant ideas within the being who is human, which is each of you, that limits you, that stands in resistance or in conflict to that which you desire, to that which you are inspired to be, do, and have. The truth is that it's right in front of you. It's always in front of you. Anything that feels off, anything that you might call negative, a negative happening, these are ideas within you being reflected. You have to understand that that which is appearing outside of you is a reflection of you. And the truth is that those closest to you reflect it at a higher frequency than what you might call a stranger. But anything that's appearing outside of you is a reflection of you. It's telling you what type of ideas exist within you. Now, you may not be conscious of those ideas, but when you can start saying and believing in yourself, okay, I'm paying attention to what's happening outside of me. This was great. Okay, that's fine. This experience, not so great. I really didn't like it. So, what is it that is within me that aligned me with that experience? And we understand that sometimes you don't want to take responsibility for things. Sometimes you don't want to say and you don't want to believe that I in any way had any part in creating this experience, but your plane of existence is built that way. Period. That which is appearing outside of you is a reflection of you. Some way you are aligning with that experience. The collaborative components that show up outside of you in support of you to create experience are there because of what you are offering energetically. So once you have an experience that is undesirable, you can go into what you call your meditation and ask your inner being. And there's pieces and parts to these things that you want to get familiar with before you really jump into. But our biggest suggestion and what we support people in understanding is that number one, your imagination is a two-way mirror. It's not a one-way mirror. Oftentimes, individuals think that, hey, they can daydream or they can imagine something and put it on the screen of their mind. But think about your dreams. When you have a dream, there's imagery there that you're not putting there. So where does it come from? Well, it's coming from your inner being. It's giving you imagery based on things that you are familiar with trying to communicate with you. So your imagination is a two-way mirror. It's a two-way mirror or a two-way window. So what we suggest, you go into meditation, get yourself into a high vibration, ask your inner being what ideas are there that's aligning me with this experience? Or what ideas am I carrying that are resisting that which I am trying to create? And allow it to show you via the imagery of how the idea is represented within you on the screen of your mind. Because you don't want to skip over these things. Resistance, inner conflict is not something that you just want to get rid of because it's there for a reason. These ideas inside of you are there perfectly for a reason for you to support you in your growth and expansion. So when you become aware of these things, you want to understand them. You will first want to bring them into the light with the support of your inner being. You want to understand them. You want to understand and know, okay, what's the difference between these ideas that I'm carrying and the truth of you and source? And then you want to transform them, and you transform them by utilizing whatever imagery that your inner being deems necessary to release that idea. And it's interesting sometimes. It may be casting it off into space somewhere where you cannot reach and it cannot return. Whatever your inner being suggests, that's what you should do. But the crux of it is allow your inner being to support you because it can see that which is within your mind and body as a dominant idea. That which you cannot see at the moment that you're not conscious of, your inner being can see, but you have to ask. You have to ask and you have to be in the position to be able to allow that support and be aware of how your inner being is communicating to you. That's why we said there are steps from our perspective that you need to play with so that you can be familiar with how your inner being communicates to you. Are you more feeling or are you imagery or are you both? We've had clients that are one or the other or they're kind of balanced. Sometimes people are more feeling when their inner being communicates to them. It's more so about the feeling. Sometimes they are more perceptive of the imagery. But the key is allow your inner being to show you by asking. Allow your inner being to show you what is there and then work with it. That's our suggestion.
Mm. Thank you. One of the purposes of my channel is to wake people up to the reality of who and what they actually are. Like they're just not this physical being. How would you
Mhm.
describe the nature of us as human beings?
Oh man, your true your true nature is endless. It has no beginning. It has no end. You're pure consciousness. You are existing now on multiple planes of existence, having multiple experiences now. You've had existed on many planes in many dimensions. You've had many lifetimes that have led you to this point. Think about it. Many of you that are listening to this conversation, this interaction, 5, 10 years ago, you weren't open to this type of interaction, but now you are. And that's the result of your evolution, not of this lifetime, but of multiple lifetimes that have placed you here to listen to this interaction. But the truth is, you are eternal. You are infinite. And the only reason you do not know that at this moment and you're not living and breathing that truth is your current vibrational expression, your current position vibrationally that you're offering in the contents of your mind. that which you are believing in. That's the only reason you do not know. And that's by design. But at the same time, as you grow and understand the truth of you, now you understand why you're putting in not the work, but the play and practice to get back to that point. And it's not something where you're having to add things to you. It's about letting go and releasing the things that are already within you. The more you release, the more truth, the more light will shine through you. It's about releasing, it's not about adding.
I've heard you say something along the lines of that it's really important that you align yourself with things that inspire you so that you can live a fulfilling life.
Mhm.
And how do we distinguish? Sorry, let me say that again. How do we distinguish between these authentic, sort of soul level inspirations and things that are more ego driven or societal conditioning?
Mhm. Mhm. Most of you that are Many of you that are listening to this, if you have actually begun to play and practice the work, if you will, of releasing, you have become aware of those ideas within you. Well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about ideas within you as mature beings who are human that you know have been present for a long time. Many of you have ideas. You have been inspired to things that have been present for a long time. And you understand what we're talking about because you have been around mature adults who are about to make their transition. And then you have conversations with them and they talk about things that they always wanted to do, but they never did. Those are inspirations. Those are not just, hey, I think I want to do this, or hey, I think I want to get that car, or hey, I think I want to go to this place. Those are inspirations that bubbled up inside of them at a certain point in their life and they never left, right? Benny's dad talks about being interested in being a marine biologist. He said that multiple times in conversation. But of course, he believes that he's too old to go back to school and do all these things. But he will say it out of his mouth that this is something that he's thought about and been interested in for many, many years. That's an inspiration. And each of you understand that. Ideas that have never left you. And why the reason it's so powerful and the reason it has never left is because that idea was a part of the plan that you set for yourself before you entered into your physical body. And if you can be of the vibrational expression of the mental framework that allows you to move down that path, there are things in place that you have been set for you that help you in your growth and expansion, your evolution, if you will. Now, do you have to do it? No. But if you're capable of doing it, you would be breathing the life that you actually set for yourself. And that feeling is highly recognizable for each individual when you know that you're living your life in the way that you're inspired to live. It's a way of living that is part of what we're supporting individuals to get to. But understanding that the idea of being inspired to do something, that swelling of high energy when something appears or an idea, and you're like, man, that would be awesome. I really, really want to do that versus just a fleeting idea of the mind connected to the mind of humanity. There's a significant difference in the feeling that allows you to understand and the longevity of the idea. An idea born of the mind of humanity that sparks in, it comes and goes. That which you are inspired to doesn't leave. It stays. You go to bed with it, you wake up with it. You go to bed with it, you wake up with it. You get frustrated at not having acted on it. Those are inspirations born of your inner being, trying to show you a path that would be highest and best for you to follow.
Hmm. And there's a lot of suffering and injustice in the world, and it can be challenging to hold this perspective that everything is unfolding, perfectly
Mhm.
well from a higher viewpoint. So,
Yeah.
how would you guide someone to reconcile their, people that want to have a compassion and a desire to help with what's going on, and there's this kind of wisdom of general acceptance of how things are?
The truth is, as you go on down the path of personal development, growth, evolution from a frequency perspective, the more you develop and elevate yourself along your personal journey vibrationally, that type of understanding opens up and comes into you. And the more you're able to accept the truth of the fact that there is a greater planet work for each individual and that all is perfect. And that for each individual, if you truly want to affect the world, it's a matter of where you're placing your attention, right? We had a conversation with someone recently and they were asking a similar question about things happening in the world. And we brought to light for them, which they knew, but it's not where you place your focus. They knew that simultaneously, while it looks like things are bleak on the planet, at the same time, there are millions of people around the world consuming information like this, right? But you wouldn't know that because mass media is not showing these type things, right? So there is excellence, brilliance, perfection at play. Vibrationally, number one, that which you perceive to be not so great is alignment happening for individuals and for groups, right? In a low vibrational position, but it's perfect because each one was low vibrational on this plane of existence before they raised their frequency and got to a higher place or positioned themselves to even be open to these type transmissions. But there's also another sector going on where individuals, like we said, are listening and consuming this type information quietly, organically growing in vibrational expression, cleansing themselves of low vibrational belief systems, dominant ideas, and bringing more light into the world, right? And the more this happens, the more each of you as individuals participate in this side of the happenings, and the more light is released into and onto your planet, there's a critical mass place that will get crossed to the point where it will be undeniable that you were able to look out and see experiences being created born of brighter light because of the numbers of beings who are human on your planet that are allowing it to flow through each of them as individuals. But it still comes back to acceptance, both personally and looking out into the world. Acceptance that things are happening perfectly and that each one is perfectly on their own individual journey. It really is about acceptance. That was a perfect word to use.
Abraham, I've read many of your books, and you've often emphasized the power of focusing on what you want rather than
Right.
what you don't want.
Mhm.
Yet we're also, this is a conversation I often have with my wife, is that we're advised to allow and fully feel our genuine emotions as well. So how can
Mhm.
we honor our feelings without sort of amplifying the negative things through our attention to them?
Mhm. Mhm. Well, you honor them by loving yourself anyway. Yes, I feel this way, but I'm not standing in judgment of myself. I'm not calling myself good, bad, right, wrong, or negative. I'm just seeing it. I see that I feel this way, and I love myself regardless. Now, the question is, what is that doing? What effect is that having? The effect that that's having is that the idea within you that is the catalyst of that which you might call a low vibrational idea, that is the catalyst of the feeling. When you love yourself in the midst of feeling that idea being expressed, the vibration of the love, the vibration of the acceptance, the vibration of being excited, of being able to watch the movement within the mind and body and not be moved by it, not be moved into action by it, that energy is affecting the idea within you, right? It's disrupting the idea. And the more often you're able to do that, you're actually dissolving those low vibrational ideas that are causing these types of feelings to present themselves inside of you. But it's about getting to the place where you're able to, number one, witness those expressions within your body and being strong enough not to be affected or moved by them, but to love them, loving yourself in the midst of it. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does. That's very
Awesome.
useful.
Awesome.
So the path of spiritual growth, for want of a better word, it can be
Mhm.
a bit lonely at times, and
Oh,
it's misunderstood by other people, and this is true for me. So, what advice would you offer to someone who's feeling isolated or perhaps a little bit discouraged in their process of awakening?
mm, continue the path. Continue the path. Uh, intend, intend to come in contact with like-minded people because they're out there feeling very similar, sometimes feeling stuck, not knowing what's next, not knowing if they're doing the right thing or not, right? Not knowing what the next process is, what they should be doing. Um, and yes, oftentimes at this moment, individuals who have become aware of the truth and are seeking to be an expression of their truth are amongst individuals not on that same path, not in the same position, which is perfect because as you grow, you are a bright vibrational model for those that you are around. So it's perfect. But you can look out, like we said, on your social media and see that there are others on the same path. You can intend to come in contact with others on the same path. But we do understand that feeling. We do understand that feeling. That feeling is something that Benny has experienced and gone through often, often, even though he supports individuals who are on this path. But intending to, if it's necessary, if that's a strong desire, but intending to come in contact with individuals so that you can have similar, like minded conversations is one way. But the truth is, as you move down this path, the stronger you will get because the truth of you in source, the truth of you in source, in the truth of you in source, all exists. And what you are becoming is a powerful individual who is not only detached from the happenings on your plane of existence, but is a source of light on your plane of existence. That's where you're going.
Hmm. This question just popped into my head, so it must be one that a lot of people have.
Mhm,
What actually
mhm.
happens to us when we die?
Well, the first part of that is that you never die, actually. You just transition. You make your transition. And when you make your transition, you evaluate that which you created in your life experience. If we just use this plane of experience, you evaluate what was created and you decide on the next. Is there something that you want to continue to explore on this plane of existence? Or is there another plane that you desire to go and create and experience? It depends on that which you were capable of creating in your life and also where you are in your soul's evolution in the overall grand scheme of that which is you. But there's no truth there. There's no death. Consciousness does not die. Consciousness exists. Consciousness is eternal. Therefore, you are. Yes.
I've heard you mention that in our natural state, we've got access to an abundance of insights and guidance, and I'm always looking for ways to help tap into that. So, what daily practices or rituals would you recommend for someone to help strengthen that ability to tap into that intuition?
That is a matter of frequency. Tapping into your abilities, your those abilities those abilities that exist for each of you is a matter of frequency. What is misunderstood or not known is that truth is a matter of frequency. There are higher truths that open up to you based on your frequency, based on your vibrational expression. And therefore, this is the evolution, this is the growth that happens. If you think about the spiritual teacher, someone in your history that made it into a book, right, was written about or something of that nature, the play and practice, the meditations, all these things that they did for many, many years, the releasing that they played with and that they practiced that was a part of their growth and expansion. It was about their vibration rates, which is the same thing for you. As you go down this path of growth and expansion, and as you take in this material, and as you release resistance, organically your vibration rises. And when you hold a higher frequency, and it can be a fraction of a, if we use your higher, lower idea, it can be a fraction of an elevation, of elevating in frequency from where you are now normally. That next level of frequency expression held consistently will open you up to ideas born of that frequency, which in turn opens you up to new and greater truths and understandings, perception of life, interpretation of life events. This is what grows and expands you into being able to accept that which is happening around you on your planet. It's a matter of frequency, it's a matter of vibration. Does that make sense?
It does. So, is it necessary for us to be really good meditators, or is there some? Is it just a matter of if our frequency is raised, that helps us, like say through music or just being in
Mhm.
nature? Is that all
If
we
you
need to do?
There you go. Uh, the idea is to understand what the purpose of meditation is, right? The purpose of meditation, if you think about someone sitting still, being still in a quiet space, where they're shutting off their senses, right? If you turn down the volume on things so that you don't have any input coming into your hearing, you have your eyes closed so you don't have anything coming into your seeing. You're not eating or tasting anything, so all of those things are shut down, and you're being still. And if you're doing a meditation where you're just focusing on your breath, what are you doing? You're giving your mind something to focus on, because you can't quiet the mind, but you can give it something to focus on, which stops all the chatter. And when all the chatter stops and your mind is not jumping to and fro, normally on ideas of low vibration, normally considering things that you do not want, well, naturally, in that space, your vibration lifts. This is the purpose of meditation, giving the mind something to focus on so that you can begin to become aware of what it feels like within the body, to not to be weighted by all of those low vibrational ideas that a person normally considers throughout the day. All of the worries, all of the doubts, all of the fears that are ignited within based on observing and outside experiences happening outside of them. That's the purpose of meditation. But when you understand that it's all about raising your frequency, that's at the core, that's what's happening when you give the mind something to focus on. Then you can shift. Yes, you can still use it as a tool, but then you can shift to exactly what you said. Music is a perfect way, but actually, it's anything that lifts your spirit, anything that lifts your, when we say spirit, we're talking about your vibration, your frequency. It can be the remembering of a beautiful experience. It can be a favorite song. It can be the idea of the rainbow, anything that offers a pure expression. If you can situate yourself in that feeling place and lift, even like we said, even a fraction of an amount above your normal walking around state and hold it consistently. That's the point. And then understand why that matters and what you're doing. You're conditioning your body. You're conditioning your body to a higher vibrational state, of which your mind aligns itself. Your brain begins to physically align itself with this new vibrational state, but you have to be consistent with it. You have to be consistent with it. Consistency is the key in this practice, in these processes. Consistency is the key. This is what all of your, what you would call a spiritual master, this is what they did. They were consistent. Oftentimes they went to locations to where they weren't bothered, but each of you listening to this information, if you are living your life as a normal being who is human and you're about to play and practice of being consistent, you're going to be much stronger more quickly than those spiritual teachers that you read about, because many of them went to locations, isolated locations, to get to the place that they were, and they weren't being bombarded through their senses by everyday life, work, family, marriage, children, strangers, neighbors, all of these things. You are on this play and about this play and practice while living your life. So you're getting stronger faster, but it's still about consistency. It's still about consistency.
Abraham, before we wrap up, I'm curious if you have any specific insights or guidance for me as the host of this podcast. So, what wisdom would you offer me in my role as an interviewer and, someone who's trying to facilitate these conversations?
You have done it some to this point, we believe, uh, but be intuitive about it. Allow your inner being to speak to you as you are speaking to individuals, and ask the questions that, and you have done it here, but look for those deep questions to ask, that the answers will resonate and cut deeply into your viewers, and truly and really, even more so than now, open them up to where they are still simmering on the inside the next day, 3 days, a week later, they're still simmering from that which was offered based on the questions that you answer. For you are connected to your viewers, right? You are connected to your listeners. So the more intuitive you are in asking your questions, the more effective the answers will be, because they will cut deeply, as deep as you can pull and allow the question to come from. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So I have one final one. It's to do with things that you're curious about, and um, reconciling things that you're following the lead of things that you're curious about, and
Hmm.
things that are, I guess, seen to be of service.
Hmm.
And I I feel like sometimes just simply following what you're curious about is somewhat self-serving
Hmm.
in a world where we need people to be more of service to others. So how do you reconcile those two things? What wisdom have you got for
Mm.
us there?
Yeah, that's a powerful question. That's a powerful question, and the answer may be a little uneasy for many, but you have to understand that this is a selfish journey. This is a selfish journey. Each of you listening, each of you as individuals, you are the center of your verse. And the truth is, there's nothing that you have to do, even though you're being inspired from the inside out. But there's nothing that you have to do. You owe nothing. You're not responsible for anything, truly, even though the mind of humanity says, well, you're a husband, you should ABC. You're a parent, you should ABC. But actually, it's not true. There's no shoulds. There's no shoulds. It is self. And what you don't understand is that if you selfishly follow that which you are inspired to, selfishly follow those things that you just mentioned that you're curious about, you don't know what knowledge, wisdom, next steps reveal themselves as you follow those ideas that may help you be a better husband if that's what you're intending, help you be a better parent if that's what you're intending. Gems are there if you follow your selfish expressions, your selfish curiosity. For that's why you're here. When you make your transition, nobody else is there. It's only you. This is a huge misconception because humanity has been conditioned to believe that this spiritual journey is about being all of these things to others. When the truth is, your ability to be of the highest effect and influence to others is as a result of your personal having grown personally as an individual. And you grow personally as an individual by following that which bubbles up inside of you. And that which bubbles up inside of you actually is only for you. You see how that's kind of, there's like an inverse thing going on there?
Hmm.
The more selfish you are about following that which you are excited about, especially if you're on this path, the stronger and the brighter of a light you are. Number one, a model for all of those you come in contact with. But then when you start adding in that idea of acceptance, you're capable of being and getting closer and closer to being a full, free expression of source for those closest to you and for those that you come in contact with seeking your support. It's a very interesting thing, but that perspective, the interpretation, the understanding opens up to you again. It's tied to the frequency. It's tied, it's tied to the frequency that you're offering, that you're breathing, that you're interacting in on a consistent level. The understanding of all of these things is in the frequency that you're offering. So if we were to suggest anything, it would be to reach for the highest frequency that you can as often as you can and try to hold it. Again, conditioning the mind and body to that frequency and opening yourself up to the truths of that frequency. And if you can do that, if you play with that and stay with that, everything that you desire to understand will make its way into you. And when it starts to make its way into you, you will know. And you'll also know that you're doing the right things as far as your personal growth and expansion. You'll know that you're on the right path and moving in the right direction.
Thank you. Is there anything that you'd like to, it was get towards the end of this conversation, anything you'd like to leave people with, anything additional that you'd want to say that isn't necessarily a question I've already asked?
Open yourself up. Ask yourself questions based on where you are. Ask yourself questions. Ask yourself what's next. Ask yourself who you are truly, what you are capable of. Ask yourself those deep questions and don't be ashamed to ask them. Humanity has been conditioned through its religion that you have to be careful about what you ask. That hierarchy thing, that authority hierarchy thing that has been sown into in humanity's spiritual growth that completely throws it off. The truth is that you're talking to you when you ask the question. So it doesn't matter how angry you are. It doesn't matter how frustrated you are. It doesn't matter how excited you are. Just understand that you're talking to you. So whatever the question that you have, or even if you don't know what questions to ask, Ask what questions you need to be asking that will help you move down the path of growth and expansion for you, and expect the answer, right? Expect the answer because you're talking to you. And the minute you start asking the question, the minute you will start pulling the information to you that is perfect for you in the moment. That is what we think is something that needs to be understood, needs to be known for those listening.
Abraham, it's been a great privilege for me to be able to talk to you. This is probably more for Benny. People are going to want to ask questions. Benny, could you let us
Mhm,
know,
mhm.
briefly what you've got going on as far as how people can get in touch with you, if there's any particular services that you offer people?
Yeah, well, we're growing a global community, which is exciting. I've worked with people and have people in our community now all over the world. I have people in your country. Um, but yeah, you can find us at we have first of all to get people started, we have a few free things, free trainings. One is uh, at iamthediscourse.com. That's a free training that kind of discusses who you are, what you're capable of, and why you don't know it yet. There's another free training at www.accelerated-evolution.com where we talk about the three attention shifts that you have to make in order to know that you're working at your foundation. And it gets into the whys of what we were talking about, the purpose of meditation, the purpose of reaching for a higher frequency. We go over those things. Like again, there's so many different directions a person can go on this path. But if you want to know how to make sure that you're doing the right things and working at your foundation to really expand yourself as an individual, we go over those three attention shifts. You can find us on YouTube at Consciousness Ascending hyphen Benny R. Ferguson Jr. We're always putting new material up there. But if you connect with us through any of those venues, then you will get the information about what else is going on. We do private sessions, we have monthly workshops, and we have a private community that's growing where we offer like close contact interaction, conversation, weekly Q&As for people who are really about the play and practice of releasing the resistance that they have in their life and expanding and wanting to accelerate that process.
All right. Well, we'll put links to all of that in the show notes, Benny. Thank you so much for being my guest. Let me try that again. Thank you so much for being my guest today. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, this has been awesome. I really appreciate it being able to be of support, and we look forward to the next time.